Thanksgiving dinner at Laura's parents' place always felt like an overproduced Broadway show. Laughter echoing off the vaulted ceilings, wine flowing like it was some Roman banquet, and that obnoxious centerpiece Laura's mom brought out every year, an actual roasted turkey shaped like a peacock, feathers and all. I sat there quietly, wedged between Laura's Uncle Rob and a too-drunk Aunt Kathy, slowly nursing my third glass of wine. Across the long, rustic farmhouse table, Laura held court. She was in her element, wine in one hand, fork stabbing at some green bean casserole as she launched into another story. "Oh, come on, Mike doesn't care. We don't do jealousy in this marriage," she declared loudly enough for half the house to turn their heads. "We believe in progressive values. Freedom. You know, open conversation, open-mindedness, sometimes even open options." She giggled, her cousins joining in like she was delivering a Netflix special. I forced a smile. The kind you practice before a job interview. The kind that hides everything. Erin sat across from me, just slightly to the right. Her wine glass was resting gently between her fingers, eyes half-lidded with a lazy, quiet interest in the conversation. I hadn't really paid her much attention before tonight. She'd been divorced just over a year, and Laura always said she was the pretty but boring one. Funny, she didn't seem boring now. Her lips curled in a subtle, knowing smile as Laura went on about how we didn't believe in outdated rules anymore. I let my eyes drift to her without meaning to, and she caught me. She held my gaze, playful but sharp. Then came the wink. A quick flutter of her right eyelid, so small I thought I imagined it. But when I blinked, she was still looking straight at me, smirking now, like we had a secret. I almost dropped my fork. I looked away, cleared my throat, and took a sip of wine. But the air had shifted. Something tiny had cracked open in that moment, like the first pull of a zipper being undone. I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in years, an electric charge under my skin, a heat that pulsed right behind my sternum. Laura didn't notice. Of course she didn't. She was too busy telling her cousin Megan about how boundaries are just mental constructs. Meanwhile, Erin leaned back in her chair, tucking a strand of chestnut hair behind her ear, and took a slow sip of her wine, never breaking eye contact. It wasn't just the wine. It wasn't a game, not entirely. There was something deeper in that glance, something quietly defiant. She saw me, not Laura's husband, not the guy dragged to these dinners and paraded as a prop in Laura's performance of feminist freedom. Just me. The meal went on, stuffing, gravy, small talk, and I tried to pretend nothing had changed. But it had. At one point, Erin excused herself to go help with dessert in the kitchen. I watched her walk away, her hips swaying in that deliberate, slow rhythm that women master only when they want to be noticed. The smooth lines of her dress traced the curves of her back, and I hated myself for looking. But I couldn't stop. "Mike," Laura's voice cut through my trance. I turned, startled. Did you hear what I said?" "No, sorry, what?" "I said, you're being quiet tonight. You okay?" I smiled again, automatic. "Yeah, just tired. Long week." She rolled her eyes. "God, you're always tired. You should try living with a little less pressure. You know, like me." Then she laughed and turned back to Megan. And just like that, I disappeared again. Later, as I helped collect dishes, I caught Erin passing behind me with a tray of dessert. Her shoulder brushed mine, just briefly, and I swear I felt it all the way down my spine. She leaned in. Too close, way too close, and whispered, "Some rules are made to be bent." My stomach twisted. I nodded mutely. My hands trembled slightly as I carried the next stack of plates to the sink. When we finally left, Laura was tipsy and still glowing from all the attention. She slurred through a rambling monologue about how proud she was of us for being so evolved, while I drove in silence. I didn't say a word the whole ride home. But that wink, it haunted me. The ride home felt longer than it should have. Maybe it was the silence, or the weight of what hadn't been said. Laura sat in the passenger seat, shoes off, feet tucked under her as she scrolled through her phone, smiling faintly to herself. Probably reliving the applause she got at dinner. "Can you believe how jealous Megan was?" she said suddenly, her voice bright and careless. "I mean, I swear, if I hear one more of them complain about how boring their husbands are. Meanwhile, look at us." I glanced over, unsure how to respond. She didn't wait. Everyone wants what we have. Freedom, honesty, trust. They just don't have the balls to admit it. Freedom, I repeated, more to myself than to her. Yeah. She turned her head to face me, her words lilting. We're not like them. Chained to some idea of marriage from the 1950s. We don't do rules. We do possibilities. I said nothing. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. It's kinda hot when you think about it, she added, stretching like a cat. I'm sure Aaron was loving it. That whole wink thing. Very high school. But cute. I nearly missed a red light. My mouth opened slightly, but I stopped myself. What was I going to say? That I couldn't stop thinking about the way Aaron had looked at me? That my heart had done something strange in my chest when she whispered those words near the sink? That I felt seen for the first time in what felt like years? You're quiet again, Laura said, twisting her body to face me more fully. Don't tell me you're actually jealous. No, I said too quickly. Just tired. You always say that. She laughed, but there was a needle under the sound. You're such a mystery, Mike. Like a closed book with a sexy cover. She meant it as a compliment, I think. I just nodded. When we pulled into the driveway, she leaned over and kissed my cheek. Everyone envies us, she murmured, her lips brushing just above my jaw. You'll see. I watched her get out of the car, still in her dress, the hem dancing above her knees. She walked barefoot up the steps, shoulders back, like she owned the world. And maybe she did, in her own mind. I followed slower. My stomach felt hollow. The house, once warm, now echoed with something else. Something performative. Later, in bed, she passed out half-dressed, face buried in her pillow, makeup still smeared across her cheek. I stared at the ceiling in the dark, listening to her slow, shallow breaths. I should have closed my eyes. I should have turned over. But instead, Erin's face flashed again in my mind. Her smirk, the curve of her lip, the way she saw me across the table like she knew exactly what I was feeling in that moment. She looked at me like I mattered. And that thought alone made my chest ache. Was it attraction? Maybe. But it wasn't just about sex, as much as I hated to admit that out loud. It was something else. Something lonelier. Something that whispered, you don't have to be invisible anymore. I reached for my phone, opened Instagram. I typed in her name, Erin Mitchell. Found her almost instantly. Her page was private, but her profile picture was her, standing by a lake, hair wind-tossed, sunlight catching the freckles on her face. I stared for a moment, then put the phone down. No, I wasn't going to do that. This wasn't a movie. I wasn't some lovesick idiot. I was married. Progressive or not, I'd made vows. Even if Laura had taken a blowtorch to the definition of those vows over the years. But still, that look across the table. It played like a loop in my head. The next morning, I made breakfast. Eggs, toast, coffee just the way Laura liked it. Extra cream, 2 sugars. She wandered in wearing one of my old t-shirts, smiled sleepily, kissed my forehead like we were still some happy sitcom couple. You're sweet, she said, sipping her coffee. I like this version of you. This version. You know, the soft one. Not the broody one. The one who makes breakfast. I nodded, chewing toast slowly. Which version do you prefer? She paused. Depends on the day. Today, this one. She winked. That damn wink again. But when she did it, it felt hollow. Scripted. She scrolled through her phone as she ate, pausing once to sigh loudly. God, Megan's already posting pics from last night. She cropped you out, by the way. Rude. I didn't reply, just sipped my coffee and looked out the window. That afternoon, I found myself sitting at the edge of the bed, phone in hand again, staring at Erin's profile photo. My thumb hovered over the follow button for longer than I cared to admit. I didn't press it. Instead, I opened my notes app. Typed. It's not cheating to miss being seen. Then deleted it. That night, Laura wanted sex. She made the first move, climbing onto me, kissing my neck, whispering things she thought I wanted to hear. I responded on autopilot. I touched her, kissed her, moved inside her like I was supposed to. But when she moaned my name, I felt a sharp twinge in my chest. Because the whole time, I wasn't picturing her. I was picturing Erin. The way she looked at me like I was real. Like I was something more than a supporting actor in someone else's life. I came quickly. Too quickly. Laura laughed and rolled off, satisfied. See, she said softly. We've still got it. I turned to face the ceiling again, eyes wide open in the dark. If we really had it, why did I feel like something had already started to fall apart? And worse, why did I want it to? It started with a vibration. I was in the kitchen, half listening to a podcast while chopping onions for dinner, when my phone buzzed twice in quick succession. I wiped my hands, reached for the phone, expecting some boring work group chat or another notification from one of Laura's endless social calendar reminders. But it wasn't that. It was a message. Aaron Mitchell. Still thinking about that wink. I stood still for a moment, knife frozen midair, eyes locked on those 7 words. There was no emoji, no playful punctuation, just a flat, dangerous sentence that pulsed through my chest like static. I read it again, and then, God help me, I smiled. Not a wide grin, not anything showy, just a quiet lift at the corner of my mouth, like some part of me that had been asleep had finally opened its eyes. I didn't answer right away. I stood there in the warm light of the kitchen, onions stinging my eyes, the scent of garlic in the air, and stared at the screen like it was radioactive. Then I heard Laura's voice float in from the hallway. Did you get the kale? I told you I wanted kale for the salad. Yeah, I called back. Bottom drawer. She mumbled something and wandered away, leaving me alone again. I looked at the message one more time. Then I typed. Me. It was just a wink. I hit send. Immediately regretted it. Too dismissive, too cold. I locked my phone and went back to chopping. The onions were already halfway to mush. Then the phone buzzed again. Aaron Mitchell. Funny. It didn't feel like just a wink. I swallowed hard. This wasn't a game. Not really. Not anymore. I glanced toward the living room to make sure Laura was out of sight, then leaned on the counter and typed. Me. Maybe it wasn't. The conversation paused. No reply. 5 minutes. 10. I finished dinner. We ate in front of the TV while Laura rewatched some terrible dating reality show and gave commentary on how all the men were emotionally unavailable. I was only half listening. My phone sat screen down on the armrest beside me, but my thoughts were 1,000 miles away, stuck on Erin's lips, her eyes, that wink. When Laura eventually went upstairs to take a bath, I picked up the phone again. Another message was waiting. Aaron Mitchell. I don't want to make things weird. I saw something in your eyes. Something familiar. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I replied. Me. What did you see? Her response came quickly. Aaron Mitchell. Loneliness. And just like that, something shifted. Because she wasn't wrong. We messaged late into the night. It started simple. Jokes about Thanksgiving, teasing each other over who had the worst family member, then deeper stuff. She told me how strange it felt being back in that house, watching Laura play the role of the enlightened wife when she knew better. I told her about the way Laura talked about our marriage like it was a product she was trying to sell. I didn't mean to open up, but once I started, it was hard to stop. We didn't talk about sex. Not yet. But there was a pulse underneath every word. A heat humming below the surface. She told me she hadn't felt truly seen in years. I confessed I couldn't remember the last time I'd looked forward to coming home. She never flirted. She listened. And that was more dangerous than anything else. Over the next few days, our messages became routine. Late at night, after Laura fell asleep, I'd lie on the couch in the dark with my phone, waiting for Erin's name to light up the screen. It became the part of my day I anticipated the most. We talked about everything. Music, memories, missed chances. She told me about her divorce. About how it had been quiet and cold, not dramatic. Death by 1,000 silences, she called it. I knew that death. I was living in it. One night, after a particularly long thread about regrets, she sent, Aaron Mitchell, do you think people can fall in love with the idea of someone, but never really know them? I stared at the question, thumb hovering. Me. I think people settle. Sometimes without even realizing they're doing it. Aaron Mitchell, do you feel like you settled? I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't know, but because I knew exactly. Me. I feel like I disappeared. She didn't reply for a while. Then, Aaron Mitchell, I saw you. That night. I see you now. Something tight in my chest loosened. A warmth spread across my skin, equal parts guilt and comfort. I knew I was standing at the edge of something I couldn't come back from. That we were building a bridge with each message, one step closer to crossing a line I'd told myself I never would. But that night, I couldn't stop. Laura lay upstairs in our bed, the light from her Kindle spilling across the covers, while I sat downstairs with a blanket and a whiskey, whispering my heart to a woman I barely knew, but who understood me better than the one I'd married. The guilt was there. Of course it was. But so was the ache. The deep, twisting ache that comes from feeling truly alive for the first time in forever. I went to bed late, phone still in my hand. Just before I drifted off, one last message arrived. Aaron Mitchell, let me know if you ever want to talk, face to face. I read it 3 times. Then I turned off the screen and lay in the dark, listening to Laura's soft snore beside me, and imagining Aaron's voice saying those words, just inches from my ear. It was her idea to meet. Just coffee, she'd written. Nothing scandalous. I promise. I must have stared at that message for 10 minutes before typing back. My heart said yes long before my brain could find an excuse to say no. I told myself it was innocent, that I just wanted to see her face when she laughed again, to hear her voice without the filter of a screen. The next afternoon, I found myself standing outside a small cafe downtown, pretending to scroll through emails while my pulse hammered in my throat. It was cold, late November kind of cold, and I'd forgotten my gloves. My breath came out in soft clouds as I scanned the parking lot. And then there she was. Erin. She spotted me first, a faint smile tugging at her lips as she crossed the street. She wore a long gray coat and a burgundy scarf that set off her eyes, the kind of effortless beauty that didn't try too hard. When she reached me, she hesitated for a fraction of a second, as if deciding whether to hug me. She settled for brushing my arm lightly with her fingers. Hi, she said, soft and certain. Hey, I replied, my voice lower than usual. Inside, the cafe was warm and smelled of cinnamon and espresso. We found a corner table away from the windows. I ordered black coffee. She ordered a latte with oat milk and cinnamon. Somehow, that detail stuck in my mind. We started with small talk, safe things. Family gossip from Thanksgiving, work stress, the usual how are yous that didn't mean anything. But underneath it all was the current, that quiet hum that had been building since the wink. When she laughed, it was real. Not the practiced laughter I'd grown used to from Laura. I found myself leaning forward, drawn to it, to her warmth, to the way her eyes stayed locked on mine like she actually cared about my answers. I wasn't sure you'd come, she said eventually, tracing her finger around the rim of her mug. Me neither, I admitted. So why did you? I took a sip of coffee, buying myself time. I guess. I wanted to know if what I felt that night was real, or if I imagined it. Her gaze softened. You didn't imagine it. The silence that followed was thick enough to feel. I don't usually do things like this, she said quietly. I'm not trying to start something complicated. I know. But, she hesitated, looking down. You look like a man trying not to drown. I blinked. That obvious, huh? She gave a small, sad smile. Only to someone who's been underwater too. Something cracked open inside me then. Words spilled out that I didn't know I'd been carrying. About Laura. About the speeches she made. The constant need to appear perfect, the way she'd turned our marriage into a slogan for other people's approval. I told Aaron how lonely it felt sharing a life with someone who only touched you when others were watching. She listened, really listened. No judgment, no interruptions, just quiet empathy in her eyes. When I finally stopped, I realized my hands were shaking slightly. She reached across the table, her fingers brushing mine. It was a small touch, nothing dramatic. But it sent a pulse through me that was almost painful in its intensity. Mike, she whispered, you're not the man she makes you out to be. Those words hit me harder than I expected. My throat tightened. For a moment, I couldn't speak. You don't even know me, I managed to say. Her thumb grazed the back of my hand. I think I'm starting to. We sat there for a long time, holding that fragile connection between us. The cafe buzzed quietly around us, milk frothing, cups clinking, soft laughter drifting from nearby tables, but we might as well have been the only 2 people in the room. Eventually, reality crept back in. My phone buzzed on the table. A message from Laura. Running late. Don't wait for me for dinner. I turned the screen face down. Erin noticed. Her lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. She's busy, she said softly. She's always busy. Erin leaned back, studying me. You know, it's funny. Everyone at dinner that night was hanging on her every word. But all I could think about was you sitting there, pretending not to flinch. Flinch. You look like someone being erased in real time. Her words landed heavy. I laughed, low and bitter. Yeah, well, guess I've gotten good at pretending. You shouldn't have to. There it was again, that quiet conviction in her voice. The belief that maybe I wasn't crazy for feeling unseen. Outside, the sky had turned to a pale winter gray. We'd been there for nearly 2 hours. Neither of us wanted to leave, but both of us knew we should. When we finally stood, she hesitated again, her hand brushing mine as we walked toward the door. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For showing up. For being honest. For letting someone see you." I swallowed hard. "Thank you for looking." At the door, we paused. The cold air rushed in as someone entered behind us. She shivered slightly and stepped closer. For one suspended second, our breath mingled in the chill, and I almost leaned in. But she turned first. "See you around, Mike." I watched her walk away, her coat swaying behind her like the echo of something forbidden. When I got back to my car, I sat there with the engine off, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened. I felt alive and terrified, because for the first time in years, I wanted something I couldn't name. And I knew I'd already crossed the line that separated loneliness from longing. Lying got easier than I thought it would. It started small, white lies, harmless on the surface. Working late, need to stop by the office. Grabbing drinks with a coworker. All technically plausible. All designed to keep me untraceable for a few stolen hours. Laura never questioned it. Not once. She was too busy, too self-assured, too convinced that we were the kind of couple who didn't get jealous. She used to say, "Jealousy is just insecurity dressed up like drama." Like that line made her sound evolved. But really, it just meant she never looked close enough to wonder where I actually was. And where I was, more and more often, was with Aaron. We didn't jump into bed. Not at first. The connection was deeper than that, and scarier. Our meetings began innocently enough. Coffee turned into dinner, long walks that ended with our hands brushing by accident, movie nights where we didn't even finish the film. We didn't need a screen to distract us. We had each other. Aaron had a way of sitting close, but not too close. Of listening so fully that I forgot anyone else existed. Her laughter was softer in person, more private, like she saved it just for me. One night, after a movie that neither of us really watched, we sat in her car outside my office. It was cold out, the windows fogging slightly from our breath. She had one leg tucked beneath her, angled toward me, eyes searching my face like she was trying to memorize it. "You ever feel like you're watching your life happen, but you're not in it?" I asked. "All the time," she said. "Until recently." Our hands met in the middle, resting on the center console. Her thumb traced the side of mine like it was instinct. I don't remember who leaned in first. Maybe we both did. Maybe we were always moving toward it. When our lips met, it wasn't explosive. It wasn't cinematic. It was slow, tender, devastating. Her mouth was warm and soft and patient. She didn't pull away. Neither did I. When we finally broke the kiss, she whispered against my cheek, "So, now what?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because that kiss had already shattered the version of myself I thought I could live with. I went home that night and showered longer than I needed to. Laura was on the couch, glass of wine in hand, watching some documentary about polyamory. I stood in the doorway, wrapped in a towel, watching her laugh at something one of the couples said. "They're ridiculous," she said, not even looking at me. "People think sleeping around is liberation. It's just chaos." I nodded, numb. She glanced over. "What?" "Nothing," I said. "Just tired." She rolled her eyes. "You're always tired." And maybe I was, but not in the way she thought. I started seeing Aaron more. The lies grew heavier, like wet clothes I couldn't take off. But with Aaron, everything felt light. She'd meet me in the park during lunch breaks, bring sandwiches wrapped in wax paper. We'd sit on a bench under the dead limbs of November trees and pretend the rest of the world didn't exist. Sometimes we kissed. More often, we just talked. But the tension was always there, buzzing like electricity in the air. It was one Saturday afternoon, overcast, chilly, the kind of weather that made the whole world feel like a half-finished sentence, when the dam finally broke. I was supposed to be running errands. Instead, I was standing in Aaron's doorway, the wind whipping leaves around my feet, my breath fogging in the air between us. She opened the door slowly, barefoot in leggings and a loose sweater that hung just off one shoulder. "You came," she said, not surprised. "I shouldn't have," I replied, already stepping inside. She closed the door behind me and locked it. Neither of us spoke for a long moment. We just stood there, close enough to feel the heat rising between our bodies. When we kissed this time, it wasn't soft. It was need. It was months, years, of hunger clawing its way to the surface. Clothes came off in pieces. Her sweater hit the floor first, then my shirt, then the rest, like gravity had grown impatient with us. We didn't make it to the bedroom. The couch would do. It was messy and awkward at first, fingers fumbling, nerves clashing with urgency. But when we finally fit together, skin on skin, breath catching, it wasn't lust that overwhelmed me. It was relief. I didn't feel like I was cheating, not in the way the word implies. I felt like I was finally telling the truth, with my body, with my touch, with the groan I let out when she arched her back and whispered my name like it mattered. Afterward, we lay tangled together, her head on my chest, my arm curled around her bare shoulder. She spoke first. Are we terrible people? I thought for a moment, then shook my head. I think terrible people don't care. We care too much. She traced a circle on my chest. I'm not proud of this, but I don't regret it. Me neither. We stayed like that for a while, letting the silence stretch between us like a blanket. When I finally got up to leave, she kissed me again, slow and lingering, and said, "This doesn't have to mean anything if you don't want it to." But it already did. Everything had changed. On the way home, I practiced my excuse. Rehearsed it like lines in a play. Stopped at a gas station to buy groceries I didn't need, just to make the story stick. When I walked through the front door, Laura didn't even look up from her laptop. "Hey," she said casually. "Can you believe the Hendersons are divorcing?" I thought they were solid. I blinked at her, bag of unnecessary items in my hand. "Yeah," I said. "People surprise you." She laughed. "I guess no one's really as happy as they pretend to be." I forced a smile, and thought of Erin, of her skin, warm and trembling beneath mine, of the way she looked at me like I still had something left to give. I wasn't pretending with her, and I wasn't sure I ever could again. It was Sunday again. The weekly family dinner had become a ritual, and not the comforting kind. More like a carefully curated theater performance where everyone played their part and no one said what they were really thinking. Laura insisted on us going. "It keeps the family close," she'd said as she tossed on her designer coat and dabbed perfume along her neck. "Plus," Erin texted, "she's coming tonight. Try not to be awkward, okay?" Awkward. Right. I'd had Erin's legs wrapped around my waist less than 48 hours ago. I watched her in the passenger seat as we drove to her parents' house. She scrolled her phone with one hand, her lips pursed in faint concentration. She looked exactly the way she always did before these dinners. Cool, beautiful, unbothered. Meanwhile, my pulse pounded like a drumline under my skin. We arrived fashionably late, Laura's standard move. Her mother greeted us with a shrill laugh, already halfway through a bottle of Chardonnay. Erin was in the kitchen helping with the salad. I caught a glimpse of her through the doorway, hair pulled up, sleeves rolled back, talking softly with Laura's cousin Megan. She didn't look at me. Not right away. But as I moved past the island counter, carrying a bowl of mashed potatoes like some domesticated prop, our eyes finally met. It was the briefest glance. There it was again. The static, the thrum, the silent recognition. Then came the smallest of smiles, so subtle it could have been a twitch, before she turned back to the cutting board. No words, no wink. But my body reacted anyway. My heart skipped. My throat tightened. And all at once, I was back there, her back arching beneath my hands, her lips whispering my name like a secret. I forced myself to look away. Dinner began like it always did, long, loud, and full of half-true stories. Laura sat beside me, legs crossed toward her cousin as they swapped gossip. I played my part, nodding at the right times, smiling when expected. Erin sat across from me. God help me. She wore a green blouse that clung to her in the most distracting way. Her lipstick was darker tonight, wine red and soft. Every time she reached for her glass, I caught the flicker of her pulse at the base of her neck. I couldn't stop stealing glances. At one point, her foot brushed mine under the table. It was brief, barely a second, but it was deliberate. A flick of contact that nearly knocked the breath out of me. I didn't pull away. Laura, thankfully, was too busy explaining to the group why monogamy was a colonial construct to notice. "I'm not saying everyone should have an open marriage," she said, swirling her glass. "But if more people embraced it, maybe fewer would cheat. Just saying." Megan giggled. Laura beamed. Erin arched a brow and sipped her wine without comment. My throat tightened. Laura turned to me suddenly. "Right, Mike?" I blinked. "Huh. You agree, don't you? About freedom in relationships?" I cleared my throat. "Sure. Freedom's good." That earned a laugh around the table. Erin didn't laugh. She watched me, silent and still, one corner of her mouth tugging up. Not mockery. Something closer to pity? Maybe understanding. Her foot brushed mine again. Lingered this time. I shifted slightly, knees locking. My palms were sweating. Laura leaned closer, whispering, "You always get tense when I talk about this stuff. Relax. Everyone's on the same page." No, Laura. Not everyone. The dinner dragged on. At one point, I excused myself to the bathroom just to get away. I stood at the sink, splashing cold water on my face, gripping the sides like I was about to be pulled under. I stared at myself in the mirror. What the hell was I doing? I didn't have an answer. Back at the table, dessert had started. Erin was laughing at something Megan said, head tilted slightly back, her collarbone catching the light. Laura fed me a bite of pumpkin pie like we were newlyweds again. Her fork hovered at my lips, sticky with cream and sugar. I opened my mouth and accepted it. Because that's what I did. I accepted everything. Later, as people milled about saying goodbyes, I caught Erin alone in the hallway. She was pretending to check her phone, but I could feel the awareness in her posture. I stepped close enough that I could smell the faint scent of her perfume, vanilla and smoke. "This is insane," I whispered. She didn't look up. "You shouldn't have kissed me the way you did if you didn't want it to be. I didn't think we'd be here. Like this." Neither did I. Finally, she turned toward me, eyes heavy with something I couldn't name. "I meant it, you know," she said. "When I said I see you." I swallowed hard. That's the problem. Before either of us could say more, Laura appeared around the corner. "There you are? Ready to go?" Erin slid her phone into her pocket, stepping back without a word. I nodded at Laura. "Yeah, let's go." The ride home was quiet. Laura hummed along to a playlist, oblivious. She talked about planning a weekend trip in December, somewhere snowy, cozy, romantic. I murmured agreements were needed, but my mind was still in that hallway, still stuck in Erin's eyes. Back home, as Laura stripped in the bedroom and changed into one of my old t-shirts, she said over her shoulder, "You've been good lately." I raised an eyebrow. "Good. You're different. Like relaxed." She smirked. "Almost like you're getting something on the side." I froze. She laughed. "I'm kidding. Jesus, you're so easy to rattle." I forced a smile and turned off the light. But my heart hadn't stopped pounding since Erin touched me under the table. And I was starting to wonder just how many shadows you could live with before something inside you gave out completely. It was early December when the first snow hit. Not a gentle dusting either. A full-on winter storm that blanketed the streets, shut down schools, and gave the world that eerie, muffled quiet you only get when snow covers everything. I told Laura I'd stay at the office late that night. "We've got water damage claims pouring in," I said while slipping on my coat. "Pipes bursting, collapsed roofs. You know." She barely looked up from her laptop. "Just don't get stuck driving back. Take a room if you need to." Just like that. No questions. No suspicion. Just permission wrapped in indifference. By the time I reached Erin's townhouse, the roads were slick with slush and the sky had turned a soft blue-gray. Her driveway was half-shoveled, a crooked little path leading up to her front door. She opened it before I even knocked. "You look frozen," she said, tugging me inside. "I'd walk barefoot through a blizzard to be here," I replied before I could stop myself. She looked at me for a second too long, then closed the door behind me. We barely made it to the couch before our mouths met. Hungry, frantic, as if we were trying to make up for all the stolen moments, all the quiet touches and whispered confessions that never felt like enough. Clothes hit the floor in a trail from the foyer to the living room. The couch groaned under us as we collapsed into it, limbs tangled, bodies pressed so tightly I couldn't tell where I ended and she began. Sex with Erin wasn't like it was with Laura. It wasn't mechanical or rehearsed. It was alive, messy, human. We didn't rush. We didn't need to. Each kiss felt like a promise and a warning. Her hands mapped me like she was learning a new language, and I let her. I wanted to be studied, to be remembered. Later, lying beside her under a throw blanket, the snow still falling outside, Erin reached for my hand. "I forget what time feels like when you're here," she whispered. "Me too." I traced circles on her bare shoulder, wondering how long we could keep pretending the outside world didn't exist. "I hate hiding," she said suddenly. I went still. "I hate lying, sneaking, deleting messages. It makes me feel like we're dirty." I didn't respond right away. "I don't think what we have is dirty," I said finally. "I think what we had before was." She nodded, slowly. Still, it won't stay a secret forever. We both knew it. We just didn't know how soon that would prove true. 3 days later, everything cracked. It happened with a photo. One goddamn photo. It was a Wednesday. The snow had mostly melted, leaving slush puddles and brown patches of dead grass. I'd gone to errands again, just for a couple hours. We watched a movie, ate leftover Thai food, and made love on the floor with nothing but a blanket between us and the hardwood. When I left, it was dark. My truck had frost creeping up the windshield. I scraped it off with an old gift card and didn't think twice. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that Laura's cousin Megan had driven past Aaron Street that night. She saw my truck, and she took a photo. It landed in the family group chat at 9:47 p.m. with no caption. Just a dark, blurry image of my truck parked outside Aaron's townhouse, tire tracks carving into the snowy curb. By 9:50 p.m., Laura's phone buzzed with the notification. I was still in the car, halfway home, when she called. I answered, breath caught in my throat. "Hey," I said. "Where are you?" Her voice was flat. No anger. Not yet. Just sharp curiosity. "On my way back from the office." "You sure?" "Yeah." A pause. Then, "Megan saw your truck." Silence. "Mike," she said slowly, "are you cheating on me?" My mouth went dry. "It's not." I started, but the words jammed in my throat. "Is it Aaron?" She already knew. Of course she knew. She was smarter than she let on. She just never thought I'd actually do it. "Laura, don't," she snapped. Her voice broke like ice under pressure. "Don't say anything yet. Just get home." The line went dead. When I walked through the front door, she was waiting. She stood in the hallway in a robe, arms folded, phone in hand. The image was still pulled up on the screen. She held it out to me like a weapon. "Explain this." I looked at the photo, then at her. "I don't want to lie to you anymore," I said. She laughed, cold and bitter. "Wow, that's rich. Now you want to be honest?" I said nothing. "How long?" she asked. "A couple months." "With her?" I nodded. Her mouth trembled, but she held it together. "My cousin." "Yes." "You smug little," she threw the phone. It bounced off the wall, skidded across the hardwood. "You let me parade around talking about how open and secure we are while you're sneaking around with my family?" I didn't plan it. "Oh, shut up with that movie script bullshit," she shouted. "You think you're in some great love story?" "No," I said. "I think I was disappearing." And she saw me. That stopped her cold. Her chest heaved. Her jaw clenched. "You could have told me." "I tried. You just never listened." She stared at me for a long time. Then, quieter. "And you still want her?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes." Laura nodded slowly. "Then go." I didn't move. She took a shaky breath. I said go. I grabbed my coat. My keys. I turned at the door, ready to say something, anything. But she'd already turned her back. So I left. Into the cold. Into the snow. Into the unraveling. I didn't go to errands that night. I drove for hours instead, engine humming beneath me like it could carry the guilt away. But guilt doesn't burn off like morning fog. It lingers, thick, cloying, unavoidable. Somewhere around midnight, I parked at a rest stop just off the interstate, killed the engine, and stared out the windshield as the snow started falling again. The last thing I saw before sleep finally took me was Laura's face. Hard, silent, unreadable. When I finally texted Aaron the next morning, she already knew. "Aaron." She found out. "Me." "Yeah." "Aaron, do you want to come here?" My thumbs hovered above the keyboard. Did I? I typed and erased 3 responses before I finally sent. "Me." "Not yet." I went back to the house that afternoon. Not to stay, just to talk. I owed her that much. Laura was sitting at the kitchen island, hair wet from a shower, makeup smudged under her eyes like she hadn't slept. She didn't say anything when I walked in, just looked at me like I was a stranger who'd let himself in. I stood there for a beat, keys still in my hand. "I didn't come to fight," I said. "Then don't say anything," she replied coolly. Silence. Just the hum of the refrigerator filling the air between us. "I never wanted to hurt you." Laura scoffed. "But you did." I nodded. "I know." "Was it revenge?" she asked, eyes narrowing. "Because of how I've talked about our marriage? Because I embarrassed you?" "No." "Then what?" She stood now, moving closer. "You want to play the wounded husband card?" Poor Mike, who got ignored while his wife was too busy being enlightened. "I wanted to feel real again," I said softly. "You stopped seeing me." "And she did," she hissed. That smug, barefoot homewrecker? She listened. Oh, that's Rich. Laura turned away, gripping the counter like it was the only thing holding her up. You know, I spent years trying to make this marriage something people could look up to. Something modern. And you go crawling to my cousin for validation. I wasn't looking for validation, I said. I was looking for connection. You kept talking about freedom, about how evolved we were, but that freedom was always yours, wasn't it? She spun around. Excuse me. You flirted with other men. You kissed that yoga instructor last year. Hell, you bragged about how monogamy was a dying concept. But the second I stepped outside the lines, it wasn't progressive anymore. It was betrayal. I never slept with anyone. No, I said. But you stopped sleeping with me a long time ago. That hit her. She blinked, mouth parting slightly, like the words had physically knocked the wind out of her. She took a shaky breath. And you think she's different? You think Erin is going to save you? She doesn't have to. I just don't feel alone when I'm with her. That was the final crack. The one she couldn't tape over. Laura's expression folded in on itself. Hurt twisting into rage. Rage unraveling into heartbreak. You weak, selfish bastard, she whispered. You ruined everything. And for what? For comfort? No, I said, steady now. For honesty. For something that didn't feel like performance art. She slapped me. Hard. I didn't move. Her chest rose and fell in sharp, furious waves. Her hand trembled at her side. She looked at me like she didn't know who I was anymore. And maybe she didn't. Maybe I didn't either. Get out, she said, voice flat. I nodded, picked up my coat, slipped it on with trembling fingers. As I opened the door, she said, You two won't last. You know that, right? I paused, half in, half out. Maybe not, I said, but at least it'll be real. Then I stepped outside into the cold. Snow clung to my lashes. My breath came out in clouds. The air was so quiet it felt like the world had paused to take a breath with me. I stood on the porch for a long minute. Then I walked to my truck, slid into the driver's seat, and just sat there, hands on the wheel, eyes fixed on the house I used to call home. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. But I felt something break. And I knew it wasn't something I'd be putting back together. Not this time. When I showed up at Erin's, she didn't ask questions. She just opened the door, saw the look on my face, and stepped aside. I walked in. She closed the door behind me. Neither of us said a word. She just wrapped her arms around me and held on. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a ghost in my own life. The exile came swiftly. We didn't announce it. There was no social media post, no declaration. But news moves fast in families, especially this one. Within 24 hours of me walking out, the group chat lit up with passive-aggressive questions and paper-thin concern. Megan, everything okay, Laura? Heard something weird yesterday. Aunt Denise, are you and Mike doing another one of your experiments? Hope it's not anything too dramatic. Uncle Jeff, y'all coming to the Christmas potluck? Would hate for there to be awkwardness. Laura didn't reply to any of them. She didn't have to, because Erin's phone lit up next. Her father, her sister, a few old friends, all of them asking the same question in different ways. What the hell were you thinking? She tried to explain, once. She told her sister it wasn't just about sex, that we'd fallen into something unexpected but real. The response? A screenshot of an old photo from 2 summers ago. Erin, Laura, and their cousins by the lake, arms draped around each other like a perfect little tribe. Her sister captioned it. I hope he was worth throwing that away. The next time someone reached out, it was her mother, crying, guilt-laced, shame-soaked, saying she wasn't sure if she could face the rest of the family knowing what you two did. Erin said nothing. She just handed me the phone, stood up, and walked out of the room. We became the black sheep overnight. Mutual friends stopped calling. Dinners we used to be invited to? Gone. Conversations in the group chat moved on without us. When we were mentioned at all, it was in that hushed, sanitized tone reserved for people who've embarrassed everyone. But in the wreckage, something strange happened. We found peace. We stopped tiptoeing. Stopped hiding. There was no one left to perform for. We cooked meals together in her little townhouse kitchen. Nothing fancy, just food we liked. Pasta with too much garlic, grilled cheese sandwiches at 11 p.m., pancakes for dinner, because why not? We binged TV shows, swapped books, played cards at the kitchen table while snow gathered on the windowsill. On weekends, we took walks through quiet neighborhoods where no one knew who we were or what we'd done. There was a rhythm to it, a softness. A silence that didn't feel empty. One night, we lit a fire in the living room. Curled up on the floor with a bottle of red wine and a shared blanket, Erin turned to me and asked, "Do you miss it?" "The family." She nodded. "I thought about it. I miss parts of it," I said. "The feeling of belonging. The illusion, maybe." She traced a line down my forearm. "I miss the way things used to be before I knew they could turn like this." We sat with that. Let it breathe. Then I said, "But I don't miss feeling like I was performing my life for other people." She smiled, small and soft. "Me neither." She leaned in and kissed me, slow, gentle, like it wasn't just affection but gratitude. Later that night, lying in bed, I asked, "Do you ever wonder what happens now?" She turned her head on the pillow to face me. "All the time. And I think," she paused, brushing a strand of hair from her face, "I think we stopped trying to win the game. And now we're just living." That hit something deep, because that's exactly how it felt. No trophies, no applause, just us, bruised, branded, and breathing. It wasn't perfect. We still argued sometimes. Little things. My habit of shutting down when I felt cornered. Her tendency to get too in her head when things got quiet. But the fights never felt fatal. There was no scoreboard. Just two people trying not to repeat the mistakes that broke them. One morning, I got a text from Laura. "Laura, just so you know, my parents won't invite you to Christmas. Not that you were planning to come." Then, a minute later, "Laura, they think you're disgusting." I stared at the message for a long time. Typed, erased, retyped. Finally, I settled on me. They always did. Just had better manners about it. I didn't hear from her again. And truthfully, it hurt less than I expected. There was no grand reconciliation. No emotional breakthrough. Just a door that quietly closed and stayed shut. Some nights, Erin would still stare out the window with that faraway look in her eyes. Not sad. Not angry. Just somewhere else. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked her once. She turned to me, brow furrowed. "Regret you?" "No. Just everything. The fallout." She took a long breath. "I regret that it had to happen this way," she said. "But I don't regret where we are now." I nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. Because for all the pain we'd caused, for all the bridges burned, the judgment, the exile, there was one undeniable truth we kept coming back to. This thing between us wasn't just about rebellion or escape. It was about finally being seen. And seen fully. Not as ideal versions of ourselves. Not as someone's husband or cousin, but as flawed, hurting people who chose each other anyway. That kind of love doesn't get you applause, but it gives you something better. It gives you rest. I should have said no. When Erin first brought it up, my answer was immediate and instinctive. Absolutely not. She didn't push, just nodded and went back to folding laundry, the way she always did when she didn't want to show she was disappointed. But the seed was planted. A few days later, I caught her staring at the fireplace, chewing her bottom lip. "What?" I asked. She shook her head. "Nothing. Erin. I don't want to spend Christmas hiding, Mike." I sat beside her, pulled her into me. "We're not hiding. We're protecting our peace." She smiled at that, tired but appreciative. Still, the idea lingered. And on the morning of December 24th, while brushing my teeth, I looked at myself in the mirror and thought, what if facing them is the only way this stops feeling like exile? By noon, we were in the car. We didn't tell anyone we were coming. We didn't dress up. I wore dark jeans and a wool sweater. Erin wore a simple black coat over a red dress. Elegant, understated, and brave. The roads were mostly clear. The town looked like something out of a snow globe. Trees frosted in white. Wreaths in every window. Soft yellow light glowing from inside every house except the one we were driving toward. We parked down the street. The driveway was full. Laura's parents, her sister's SUV, even Megan's obnoxious crossover. Erin turned off the ignition and sat back. "You sure?" she asked, voice steady. "No," I said. "But I'm here." We stepped out into the cold and walked in silence. Every crunch of snow beneath our boots felt like a countdown. When the door opened, it was Laura's father who answered. He blinked, took us in. First me, then Erin, then our joined hands. His face froze. The same expression he wore at Thanksgiving, only now devoid of politeness. "Is this some kind of joke?" he asked. "No," I said. "We just wanted to say Merry Christmas." Laura's mother appeared behind him, holding a tray of hors d'oeuvres. Her jaw dropped. "Merry Christmas?" she said, scandalized. You think this is appropriate? Aaron stepped forward. We didn't come to fight. Then why did you come at all? Her mother snapped. I glanced over her shoulder into the living room. The conversations had already stopped. Laura's sister, Megan, a few uncles and aunts, all of them watching. And in the middle of it all, sitting on the arm of the couch, wine glass in hand, and a look of pure disbelief on her face, Laura. She stood slowly, eyes fixed on me. Well, she said. Look who grew a spine. Her voice carried across the room like a slap. I cleared my throat. We're not here to cause a scene. Too late, she snapped. You caused a scene the moment you decided to fuck my cousin behind my back. I winced. Aaron's hand tightened around mine. Laura took a few steps forward, now face to face with us, her cheeks flushed with anger. You two are unbelievable, she said. Do you think this is love? That you'll ride off into the sunset, and all of this will magically go away? We didn't come to justify it, Aaron said softly. We just came to stop pretending. Laura turned to her, eyes blazing. You burned this family, and now you want peace? You want a hug? A plate of cookies? I want the truth, Aaron replied. And the truth is, I didn't plan this. Neither did Mike. But it happened, and I'm not going to apologize for falling in love. The room fell silent. Laura blinked. You love each other? Yes, I said. We do. Laura laughed. It was bitter, hollow. Well, I guess I should thank you. Now I get to be the victim in every story. Everyone will take my side for once. No one wins here, Laura, I said. There aren't sides. There's just damage. Her eyes flicked between us, and for a moment, I saw it. That flash of pain beneath the venom. That part of her that once believed we were unbreakable. Then she straightened, raised her glass. Merry fucking Christmas, she said, and downed the rest of her wine. Aaron turned. I followed. We didn't say goodbye. Didn't need to. Outside, the cold hit harder than before. We walked down the snowy path in silence, the house glowing behind us, full of people who no longer wanted anything to do with us. When we got to the car, Aaron turned to me. Her eyes were glassy, but she wasn't crying. Was that a mistake? She asked. I shook my head. No. She exhaled. Do you think they'll ever forgive us? Maybe, I said. But that's not why we went. Then why? I looked at her. Really looked. Because I'm done apologizing for feeling alive again. She stared at me, then nodded once. We got in the car. As I started the engine, she reached for my hand. I took it. And this time, we didn't look back. We moved on New Year's Eve. Not for symbolism, not for poetic closure, but because the lease started on the 1st and the moving truck was cheaper midweek. Still, as Aaron and I stood on the sidewalk in front of our new apartment, 2 stories, brick, modest but warm, I couldn't ignore the way it all felt like a line being drawn. Not an ending. A beginning. The city was different. Not far, but far enough. No family around the corner. No accidental run-ins. Just anonymity. Clean slate. Snow was falling again. Not heavy this time. More like soft flurries that made everything quiet and slow. We unpacked quickly. By nightfall, boxes lined the living room walls and pizza boxes cluttered the kitchen counter. Erin threw her hair into a messy bun and padded barefoot through the apartment, humming a melody she didn't seem to realize she was singing. She wore an old college hoodie and leggings. No makeup, cheeks flushed from the cold. I watched her from the couch and felt something simple, undeniable. Peace. Wine? She asked, holding up a bottle. God, yes. She poured 2 glasses, handed me one, then curled up next to me. Outside, fireworks had already started, early birds celebrating something they hadn't quite earned yet. I thought about where I'd been exactly 1 year ago, sitting across from Laura, half listening as she listed resolutions I knew we wouldn't keep, smiling like the good husband I'd trained myself to be. Crazy, huh? Aaron said, as if reading my mind. What is? How much can change in 12 months? I nodded. Feels like a lifetime. Do you regret it? She asked, voice careful, not fearful. No, I said. I regret waiting so long to live the way I needed to. She leaned into me, resting her head on my shoulder. Do you think they still hate us? I exhaled through my nose. Probably. I think about them sometimes, she admitted. Not in a guilty way. Just like echoes. Familiar sounds in a room I don't go into anymore. I knew exactly what she meant. They'll move on, I said. Or they won't. Either way, we're here. We clinked our glasses. Sipped. Midnight crept closer. I checked my phone. 11:49 p.m. No messages. No calls. And for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for any. What do you want this year? Erin asked, tilting her head toward me. I looked around. At the half-unpacked boxes. The string lights we'd hung above the window. The stillness. Her. I want this, I said. Quiet. Honest. Ours. She smiled. Then that's what we'll make. We watched the final minutes of the year tick away in silence. At 11:58, she stood up, pulled the blanket off the couch, and draped it over us both as she lowered the lights. The glow from outside lit her in pale silver. She looked ethereal. Real. And then, at 12 o'clock, fireworks lit the sky. We kissed. Not out of tradition, but because we wanted to. And it wasn't the kiss of a secret affair, or of apology, or adrenaline. It was soft. Present. The kind of kiss that says we made it. When we pulled apart, she looked at me and said, "That wink at Thanksgiving." I laughed. Yeah. That was the first time in years I'd felt like someone actually saw me. I didn't mean for anything to happen. I just wanted to feel real again. I nodded. Same. She reached for my hand. Do you think we'll last? I paused. Not because I doubted it, but because I knew she wasn't asking for guarantees. She just wanted the truth. I think we'll work at it, I said. Even when it's not easy. Especially then. She smiled, eyes glassy but steady. And then, just as snow began to fall again outside our window, she looked at me from across the couch, wrapped in that blanket, wine glass in hand, and winked. It was playful, familiar, like the first time. And without even thinking, I winked back. We both laughed, soft and tired and honest. That was how it started. That's how we survived it. That's how we keep going.